Hello everyone, in this video I would like to show you how to reshape data frames from wide format to long format and vice versa with two packages, tidyr and data.table. Let's start by loading these packages. For the examples, we're going to use GDP data from the World Bank. So let's retrieve the data. Open Google and search for GDP data World Bank. Otherwise, click on the link in the description. Now, let's open the link. From this page, what we want is the data in this Excel file. However, instead of downloading this Excel file, let's import the data directly into R. Let's right-click on this link and inspect. What we want here is this link. Let's copy. Now let's go back to RStudio. This is the code that we have to write, but I don't do this manually. Let me show you how we can do this. Let's go here to import dataset. And from Excel, let's paste the link and update. So this is the preview of the Excel file. First of all, we can see that these two rows, the first two rows, have missing values. So we can remove these two rows. Here in skip, let's write skip 2. And as you can see, we remove the first two rows and automatically the third row became our title column here. Now, if we click here import, we import this data in R. However, I don't do like this because if we import, this code will be printed in the console pane. But I want this code to be in my R script file. So what I do is I just copy and I paste. Now I also rename this one GDP. And now we are ready to run this code. And as you can see, we imported this data. Let's view it. So this is the content of the Excel file. Now, here I just make a copy of this data because through the examples, we are going to modify this original dataset. And I don't want to import the data again. Now, I remove some columns that I don't need. Let's view it. So I have only country code and the years with the GDP data. And I want to rename this country code just country. Okay, now let's reshape the data. This dataset is in a wide format. When we talk about wide format, we should think about that we have a lot of columns from left, right, and most of these columns, they can be grouped in just two columns. For example, here, we have from the second column, we have the years and the values of GDP. Now, all these columns, they could be reshaped in just two columns. One column with the year and the other column with the GDP. So let's do this. And for this example, we are going to start with the tidyr package. We are going to use this pivot underscore longer function. So we generate a new dataset GDP underscore L for long. So from the dataset GDP to the pipeline code and the function pivot underscore longer. This exclamation mark, this means reshape all the columns, but not the column country. So this country will be our ID column. And then we decided the names of the columns. So names to year and values to GDP. So we will have two columns, one called year, another one called GDP. Let's run. Let's view. And as you can see, we have in the first column here, country. This is our ID column. Then year and GDP. So as you can see, now we have three total columns and 60,104 entries. As you can see, we reshaped this dataset from wide, so a lot of columns, to long, so a lot of rows. Let's see why this is convenient. In the previous video, we talked about ggplot, and we say that the ggplot prefers to work with data in the long format. Now, let's see specifically why. Now, what I'm doing is that I'm just filtering. So I'm subsetting for these countries, France, Italy, and Germany. Let's view it. For example, we have Germany, France, and Italy. Now I want to plot the GDP for these three countries. This is the same code that we used in the previous video, so let's run it. And as you can see, very fast, we have our plot. So we have here also the legend, so we didn't need to specify any command for the legends in particular. As you can see, everything is very fast and efficient. So now, let's see, we reshaped from wide to long, but how to go from long to wide? So now let's restore the original dataset. And for this case, we are going to use this pivot underscore wider. And here we have to specify where the data come from. In this specific case, they comes from names from year and values from GDP. Let's run this code. And as you can see, we are back to the original dataset. Now, I want to show you the same process, but with data table. So to reshape from wide to long, we use the melt function. So when we work with the data table package, it's better to set the data frame as a data table. And this is what we are doing here. We select our ID variables. In this case is country. The value to reshape is from 2 to the length of the columns, so to the total number of columns. Then we have variable name reshaped to year and value name to GDP. So let's run. Don't mind this warning message. Let's view it. And as you can see, again, we reshaped our dataset and we can compare here 3 columns and 60,104 entries. And again, here was the same 3 columns and 6,104 entries. So now let's see another sample plot. In this case, I'm just subsetting for USA and China, so I'm using a different function here, subset. Let's plot. This is our plot for GDP for China and USA. Now, again, how do we go back to the wide format? In this case, we use the dcast function. Dcast the dataset, in this case df underscore l, and here we have to write a formula. Country is the ID column, this tilde, and year, the column to be reshaped, and then we have to specify the values to be reshaped. In this case, is GDP. Run. Let's view. And again, we are back to the original dataset. Now, what I want to show you is that we can reshape data with the pattern. Let's see again. Let's start with tidyr. Here, let's check. We have 62 columns, and the first column here is country, and then we have the years. So what I want to do is to add a pattern to the year, the column with the years. So I'm pasting this year underscore in front of the year. So let's run this. Now, these are the column names. And as you can see, we have this pattern. You can see that all these columns, they have year underscore. In this case, what we can do? Basically, again, we can reshape as before, but now there is an issue. Because if we reshape this data as they are, we have not the number only, but we will have year underscore. So I want to identify this year underscore, and we do this with the names underscore prefix. So here I write year underscore, and then the code is as before. So when we run this code, again, we reshaped, and as you can see, we have only the year, but we didn't reshape with this year underscore in front of it. Again, just as an example, we can filter, we can subset for Japan and the United Kingdom, and we can plot again. This is this is another plot here. You can check the data. So let's see how to do this with the data table. In this case, I'm just setting the GDP data table here with this function s.data.table. Now we melt again. ID in this case, we are selecting the first column. Here in measure, the pattern is this one, year underscore. Again, basically this warning message is telling you that data are stored with a different type, but in this case we are not really concerned about this. So let's view it. And as you can see here, when we reshape, we have this year underscore. Data table, usually if I work with data table, I use also this str underscore remove underscore all. So I'm removing this year underscore from the column called variable. In this case, we have this column called variable because we didn't set any specific name. So the function is setting default column names. In this case, it's variable and value. So by running this function, and this function is from the string r package, we remove the year underscore. You can see here. Now, for the last examples, I want to show you how to reshape with multiple ID vars. So in this case, let's restore the original dataset. Because in the first In the first dataset, we removed these three columns here. Now I want to keep all these columns, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So what I'm doing here is in pivot underscore longer, I'm selecting the columns from 5, from these columns, to the total number of columns. Again, I'm setting the name for the columns year and GDP. In this case, I decide to drop the missing values. So values underscore drop underscore na equal true. I'm removing this not available, missing values. So let's run. We can check here. For example, in the case of Aruba, we don't have any value before 1986 and they were dropped. Okay, so now again, how we go from the long format to the wide format with multiple divars. Basically, the code here is the same. The point that I want to show you is this one. Names underscore sort and values underscore fail. Because what is the issue? Because we remove the missing values, we have that for some countries, the year start from 1960. And from other countries, for example, Aruba start from 1986. If we don't set these names underscore sort, the dataset will be reshaped wide starting from 1986. For all the countries, basically the first year will be 1986. By setting this names underscore sort, we start for the 1960 from the first year for all the countries. And then we decided that we want to fill with NA in the case of missing values. Basically, we can also set any value. We could set 0, for example. So let's run. And as you can see, you can compare with this GDP. We have, for example, for Afghanistan, 5.37. And again, here from Afghanistan, 5.37. And everything seems fine. Now, let's do the same with data table. So in this case, I divars from column 1 to column 4, measures from column 5 to the total number of columns, and we're setting a variable name, value name, and we're removing the missing value. Run, and let's check. Now, let's see how to go from wide to long in this case. The formula here will be, we are going to use dcast for this, the dataset that we want to reshape, df underscore l, and then this formula. As you can see, in this case, I have to write this column name with a backstick because the title here, the column title, contains a space. So this country name plus country code plus indicator name plus indicator code, these are the ID columns. This is tilde and year. This is the column, this one, that will be cast away, that will be reshaped wide. And the content of this column will come from this GDP. Let's run. And in this case also fill equal now. We're filling for with missing value. Let's view it. So we can compare this one. And as you can see here, the order starts from Afghanistan in this case. So we have Afghanistan here, 5.3. Here, Afghanistan is here, 5.3. And Aruba, that was in the first position here, we found Aruba. I don't know what with this. Aruba here. Tempo. Let's check another one. Tempo here. We have Burundi 1.96, and we have to go on here. Burundi 1.96. So everything is fine, and with this example we concluded this video tutorial. I hope that this is useful. In the next video we are going to use again this dataset, because I want to show you how we can make dynamic plots. In particular, I will show you two dynamic plots: a line dynamic plot and a bar race plot. So if you enjoyed this video, see you in the next one.